June 18, 1944. Ridge above the Douvres Road, 6 kilometers east of Carentan, Normandy. The sky is a bruised sheet of cloud, low and sour. Frost of spent shellfire hangs over the wheat like silver dust that refuses to settle. Oberleutnant Karl Hoffmann, a 32-year-old Panther commander, breathes through the periscope and tastes the metal of a coming morning. Diesel, scorched canvas, the faint copper tang of blood from a bandage he tucks into his pocket. His radio crackles in a thin, frantic German. The frequency is shared between 2 other tanks in the ridgeline and a half-track that has been patched so many times it looks like a quilt of lead. "You see them?" he asks, and the radio replies are clipped, exhausted. The turret of his Panther creaks as it turns. Corporal Jaeger, his loader, is a man with hands like clamps and a face permanently stubbled with soot. He taps the commander's sleeve with grease-streaked fingers, eyes squinting through the glare. In the scrub below the slope, a faint rumble becomes a cadence. First 2, then 20, then an unending drumbeat. They are not British mediums today. They are American tanks. M4 Shermans, boxy and lower in profile than the Panther, green and humming like a swarm of mechanical bees. From this height, the road looks sewn with steel. A long, glinting seam of track and turret after turret, engines chuffing in even rhythm. The lead Sherman's canvas flaps. Men stand half out of hatches, helmets too big, still clutching spare boots, cigarettes, small talismans of home. Hoffmann watches a turret pass him, then another, and then the logical arithmetic every Panzer crewman who'd been at the front for a year feared: numbers. Where his company expected a dozen tanks, 20 came. Where they planned for 30, 60 slid down the slope like a tidal motion. The road never seems to thin. A direct hit from his 75mm would drop one of those Shermans, sometimes 2. But they keep coming. He fires. The recoil is a gut punch, and when the smoke clears, a crewman on the second Sherman climbs out, waving both arms, grinning as if victory were a carnival prize. Hoffmann's stomach tightens. He watches another Sherman nose up, its driver slamming the brakes, the turret whirling, then 2 more, 10 more. The sound of those engines fills the valley until it is a second thunderstorm. Inside Hoffmann's Panther, there is the same mechanical intimacy, the spray of engine oil, the smell of hot carbon, the faint hunger of a man who has not slept more than a handful of hours in a week. Lieutenant Hoffmann, Corporal Jaeger, radio operator Dieter, and driver Mueller are names that fit like toolnicks in the machine. Each has a role and each slot is as precise as a gear. They trade glances the way crewmen do, between duty and premonition. "They must be coming from the coastal dumps," Dieter says under his breath, "supply lines intact." He makes the phrase a question and does not expect an answer. Beneath the battlefield, months and miles away, the machine that feeds this tide is noisier and cleaner. Factories. Cut the scene, and the narration drops to a night floor in Ohio. Bright, electric, the hum of presses and the staccato percussion of rivets. Women in gray overalls wipe their hands and call out serial numbers. The camera lingers on a stamping. Press. A blank sheet of armor is punched into the shape that will become the flank of a Sherman. Men lift the parts onto a conveyor that is enormous and inexorable. Wolves of gray smoke pour from stacks, and at the dock the Liberty ships wait, low and packed with tanks. The voiceover does not lecture. It follows the breath of a worker named Joseph, a foreman, hands like the map of decades, who watches the welders and thinks, "They keep coming off the line and tomorrow they'll go to the sea." Back on the ridge, Hoffmann's men try to calculate what the sight of so many Shermans means. Numbers are a thing that can be measured. Tonnage, shell count, fuel. But numbers can also be a kind of weather, a slow, grinding tide that covers every slope. "We can knock out 2, maybe 3, Miller says, trying to keep the engine at idle. "But more will be behind them," Jaeger replies. He spits, then leans his helmet back against the hatch. His eyes narrow to slits against the dust. "They have more of them. The bastards have more." The first Sherman to cross the lane misjudges a rut and jolts, its tracks throwing clumps of mud. From the ridge, another Sherman suddenly appears through a dip in the field, its bow shot away at the front, and still the columns keep coming. Hoffmann fires again. He doesn't celebrate when the Sherman rolls. There is no time for celebration. There is only the repeated process: aim, fire, reload, check the horizon, and count the cost. For every Sherman that falls, 3 more take its place. The rhythm is maddening. A young American lieutenant, a face unshaved, a cigarette stub tucked under a scarf, leans from a Sherman hatch and yells something to his driver. The voice is bright, foreign. Hoffmann hears it as if through water, words blurred but intent unmistakable. Forward. The Shermans are not stealthy hunters. They are a parade of simple machines that are dependable, repairable, and being produced in numbers that make attrition their ally. In the Panther, a map is spread. Hoffmann traces the road with a finger, his nail black with soot. He realizes with a cold prick at the back of his neck that this is no simple probing raid. This is logistics. Bridges secured, fuel trucks in the rear, engineers clearing mines, all the things that make an army more than a coiled fist. Each Sherman is a finger. The fingers are many and they close with a new kind of inevitability. The sun climbs. The wheat around the ridge is torn with tracks and the shell craters gather water like dark eyes. Hoffmann looks at his crew, at the grinding brass of his gun, and for the first time that morning he considers not bravery or tactics, but arithmetic, the fact that industries across an ocean are feeding this motion. He thinks of a woman at a lathe, of a dock worker, of a convoy of trucks that creep across bridges at night. The thought is almost obscene in its simplicity. War reduced to addition and multiplication. And yet in that calculation lies the cruel truth that will shape their next weeks and months. Numbers, more than metal, may decide who moves and who is moved. Hoffmann's breath fogs the inside of the cupola as he lowers himself deeper into the turret. The gun breech is warm against his shoulder. Driver, forward 5 meters. Hull down. His voice is steady, but Miller hears the strain. They all do. The Panther eases down the reverse slope, its Maybach engine grumbling like a beast woken too early. The tank's treads grind through the damp soil, and the whole hull shudders with every root and stone. Inside, everything is cramped. Knees brushing metal edges, elbows snagging against radio cables. Dieter wipes condensation from his headset and mutters, "This is madness, they don't stop coming." No one disagrees. Down in the valley, another column of Shermans breaks through the morning haze. Their silhouettes blur through the orchard like ghosts that refuse to stay shot. The Panthers and Panzer fees around Hoffmann open fire, sharp, lethal cracks that echo across the ridge. Shells slam into Sherman armor. Sparks fly, flame erupts, but behind each burning wreck is another tank, and behind that another. Target, Sherman, 12 o'clock. Hoffmann calls. Jaeger slams a shell into the breach. The metallic ring echoes inside the turret, sharp and final. Boom! A Sherman jerks sideways, turret split open like the cracked shell of a walnut. Black smoke boils outward, thick and hungry. For a moment, the crew watches. They always do, just a heartbeat to see if anyone climbs out. One man does. He stumbles, his jacket burning, tumbling into the ditch. Jaeger whispers a prayer. There is no time for more. Another Sherman crests the eye. Hill miles away, across an ocean. Machines roar with very different purpose. The camera jumps to Detroit, Ford's massive River Rouge complex. It dwarfs everything. It consumes iron ore and spits out tanks. Railway cars dump coal into furnaces. Cranes haul slabs of metal the size of train cars, and assembly lines stretch longer than the length of an airfield. A woman named Grace McAllister, hair pinned under a cloth, tightens the final hex bolts on a Sherman transmission. Her gloves are black with graphite. She doesn't know where this tank will go. She only knows the day must hit quota. A supervisor passes by. Shift report. 1 every 18 minutes, she replies. Not a figure. A pulse. 1 tank every 18 minutes. The camera follows a finished hull as it travels down the rail to the docks. Liberty ships wait. Steel cargo opens like a hungry mouth. Tank after tank disappears into the hold. Back to Normandy. For Hoffmann, that production line has a sound. The rumbling thunder that never ends. The logistics of a continent now exist in the space between every heartbeat. The Panther recoils again. Boom. Miller calls back through the intercom. "Sir, we're spotting more movement on the right flank." "How many?" Hoffmann asks. Miller hesitates. "Not sure." "Plenty." More silhouettes appear. Not just tanks now, but trucks, engineers, infantry carriers. A river of men in steel pouring from landing zones secured days ago. Flak bursts above, puffs of black cotton. Radio platoon net, Hoffmann orders. Dieter fumbles the dial. Tiger platoon is still 2 kilometers east. They're engaging British armor. No support here? Of course not. Germany has always had better tanks, but never enough. Hoffmann presses 2 fingers against his temple. We can break them if we flank. A 20-pounder anti-tank shell whistles, then slams into the Panther's frontal glasses. The tank rocks violently. The crew freezes. The armor holds. But everyone knows that was luck. In that frozen second, Dieter remembers something his training officer once said. Superior machines lose when inferior machines show up in overwhelming quantity. Out the periscope, Hoffmann sees yet another Sherman crest the far ridge. Then another. The line becomes a flood. Jaeger whispers, "Where the hell do they get all these tanks?" Hoffmann answers without looking away. From a place that doesn't sleep. Across the orchard, an American tank commander stands high in his hatch. Lieutenant Robert Klein, 2nd Armored Division. He wipes dust from his goggles and signals with 2 fingers. 3 left. Advance together. Keep the spacing. Klein isn't a romantic. He isn't counting how many Shermans fall. He's watching how easily his unit calls for replacements. If a Sherman is knocked out, an M32 recovery vehicle rolls in, drags it to the rear, repairs it, and the crew gets another. When a Sherman commander goes down, another takes his place. When a tank is lost, the quartermaster just checks a box. Replace Klein slaps the turret. Forward! The Shermans surge, the Panther fires again. Boom, the shot hits, another Sherman brews up. Flames lick the turret ring. Its crew bails, leaping into the ditch. The next Sherman rolls around the wreckage without slowing. Jaeger watches through the gun sight. His voice cracks. They don't care if they lose one. Hoffmann doesn't answer. He knows the truth. The Americans can afford losses. Germany cannot. The battle is no longer about positioning, or gunnery, or who has the better tank. It is about who can build more. The Panther crew reloads. Sweat runs down Jaeger's face. The turret fans struggle to clear smoke. The smell of burnt cordite claws at their throats. Hoffmann presses the intercom switch. Hold this ridge, he says. He says it like a man ordering the tide to stop. Outside, the Shermans keep coming, and coming, and coming. Numbers have become a weapon. The ridge shakes again, this time from artillery, not engines. June 18, 1944, late afternoon. The air is heavy, swollen with cordite and heat. The valley below is scarred from hours of tank fire. Craters like deep open wounds, trees split into jagged spears. The sun glitters off broken glass, twisted metal, and oily puddles that shimmer in rainbow slicks. Inside Hoffmann's Panther, the smell of war is thick, sweat soaked into padding. Burnt grease on the breech, diesel fumes swallowing every breath. Jaeger slams another shell into the chamber so hard the brass casing rings like a small bell. Another, Sherman below them, bursts into flame. But the celebration lasts only a second. Past the smoke, another Sherman rolls in to take its place, and another and another. This isn't a column anymore, it's a tide, gun loaded. Jaeger barks, voice hoarse. Hoffmann looks through his periscope at the horizon. Shermans weave between orchards and hedgerows, engines howling. Dirt sprays under their tracks. Their hulls bounce, turret gunners gripping handles with white-knuckled fists. Fire on the lead tank, Hoffmann orders. Boom! The Panther recoils violently. The spent shell clatters on the turret floor, rolling under Dieter's boots. The lead Sherman keeps coming. Armor too thick at that angle. Bad ricochet, Scheisse, again. Jaeger loads. Hoffmann breathes steadily. His heart does not. The second shot punches through the Sherman's side armor and the tank jerks. One crewman tumbles out. The replacement tank behind him pushes the burning wreck aside with its dozer attachment. They don't stop. They cannot stop. Orders are simple. Advance. On the American side, Lieutenant Robert Klein stands in his hatch, pointing forward like he's directing traffic rather than steering death. His throat is raw from shouting. Maintain spacing. Do not bunch up! His Sherman rumbles ahead. Through the dust, he sees a Panther on the crest. Sleek angled armor reflecting sunlight like a black predator crouched on the ridge. Klein spits grit from his mouth. That's our problem. Mark it, his gunner adjusts elevation. AP loaded, ready. Klein's hand hesitates on the radio trigger. He can see 2 dead crews from earlier. Burned tanks, open hatches. Still smoking, he whispers, "Let's end this." Back in the Panther, Dieter's headset crackles. Panzer IV's retreating, left flank collapsed. Tiger platoon not responding, possible radio failure? Artillery request denied, priority given to con sector. Hoffmann swallows. We're alone. A distant thunder rolls, artillery from offshore ships, U.S. Navy guns. Heavy calibers that shake the ground. The shells scream overhead, flattening hedgerows and anything unlucky enough to shelter behind them. The ridge that once felt solid now trembles. Beneath the weight of war, mid-battle moments happen in fragments. Miller, hands shaking, forces the Panther into reverse. As rounds whistle overhead, Dieter, face pale under grime, clutches the radio handset as if it might answer a prayer. Jaeger jams shells into the breach so fast his knuckles split. Blood mixes with gun oil. Hoffmann's world narrows to the periscope, smoke, movement, flash, another Sherman 2 o'clock fire. Boom, hit. The turret pops off like a kicked tin can. Jaeger coughs from smoke, voice cracking. "That's 20. I swear we've knocked out 20. Miller mutters through clenched teeth. "And they're still coming?" Jaeger throws his helmet to the floor. This isn't a battle. It's slaughter. Something in Hoffmann snaps. Reload and shut up. But even that anger can't hide the despair creeping in. He has been at Kursk, at Kharkov, in Russia, where entire forests seem to burn and ice swallowed tanks whole. He has fought Soviet T-34s, agile wolves of the steppe. But even there, the Russians eventually ran out of tanks on a given day. The Americans don't. They don't even slow down. Cut back to Detroit. Welders crack sparks against the face of another Sherman hull. A bell rings, lunch break, and nobody stops working. Assembly persists. Conveyor belts hum. Wrenches clank. A factory foreman signs off on another finished tank. Sherman serial 50421 next. It will be shipped tomorrow. It will replace one of the burning hulks in Normandy. War isn't courage. War isn't tactics. War is who can build more machines faster. Back to Normandy, shellfire erupts around the Panther, shrapnel pinging against armor like hail. The intercom squeals as a Sherman MG rakes the hull. Sparks dance across the optics. "Muller, move, move." The Panther groans into motion. Through his periscope, Hoffmann suddenly sees infantry sprinting alongside the Shermans. Fresh American troops leaping into cover, rifles braced, yelling to each other. They have infantry advancing with them, Dieter murmurs. In numbers. Hoffmann watches new waves of men and machines pour into gaps. German shells have only just cleared. He feels something he hasn't felt since winter on the Eastern Front. Hopelessness. The Panther fires again. The shot misses. Jaeger's hands slip, slick with sweat and blood. The Shermans reach the base of the ridge. Hoffmann realizes they aren't just attacking, they're replacing their losses in real time. He grips the periscope handles as Shermans fan out left and right. They're surrounding them. Driver, reverse now. The Panther lurches backward too late. One Sherman finds a flank angle. "Klein, fire!" Boom. The world goes white. Inside the Panther, the lights go out. Smoke pours into the crew compartment. Miller screams that the engine has been hit. Flames lick the bulkhead behind them. "Evacuate! Evacuate!" Hoffmann yells. He kicks the hatch open. Outside, sunlight, smoke. Gunfire, a whole world still moving while theirs burns. Behind him, Sherman engines continue to roar. The tide has reached the ridge and it will not stop. The hatch slams open. Hoffmann throws himself into the daylight, boots slipping on the scorched Panther hull. The steel beneath him is hot enough to sear through his gloves. Flames lick up from the engine compartment, oily black fire. Smoke stings his eyes. Muller bursts out next, coughing hard, one sleeve burned away. Jaeger scrambles after him, dragging Dieter, half-conscious, from the turret machine gun tracers. Slice the air around them. Green-white arcs skipping off the Panther's glacis. American infantry are closing. Hoffmann drops into the grass and rolls, feeling the sting of nettles on his neck. He reaches back to help Dieter down. "Move, get off the ridge. South tree line." Jaeger grabs Dieter under the arms and half drags, half carries him. The radio operator's legs limp. Miller sprints toward a shallow gully, where wildflowers grow between broken rock, helmet bouncing on his pack. The Panther's lead tank, Hoffmann's machine, burns behind them. Turret glowing red-hot from internal ammunition fire. After a second explosion, shrapnel rains around them like metal hail. Jaeger looks back, face streaked with soot. She's gone. Keep moving. Hoffmann yells. They sprint, stumbling down the slope. Bullets snap overhead. U.S. infantry fire from behind Shermans advancing in staggered echelon formation. No hesitation, no fear of return fire. They've already calculated the outcome. One machine is gone. A replacement is already on its way. On the American side, Lieutenant Klein watches the burning Panther through his binoculars. He saw the hatch burst open, saw the crew bail. Don't waste ammo on them, he tells his gunner. We advance. We push them off the ridge. His loader, sweating through his coveralls, nods. Orders? Klein looks ahead. The hedgerow beyond the ridge hides the highway to St. Lo. Their objective is not to kill every Panzer. It is to own the road. Keep rolling. The Shermans surge forward. Engines howl. Tracks chew into the earth. Behind them, a column of fuel trucks, repair vehicles, bulldozers, half-tracks, ambulances, and supply carriers follows in disciplined order. An army that moves like a factory conveyor. Back to Hoffmann's crew. They reach the gully, breathing hard, lungs burning. Hoffmann slams his back against the dirt bank and slides down into cover. Miller dives beside him, face streaked with black soot and tears he will deny later. Jaeger drops next to Dieter, who wheezes wetly, clutching his stomach. Dieter's hit, Jaeger says, voice trembling. Hoffmann grabs his canteen, sloshes water over Dieter's lips. Dieter coughs, eyes fluttering. Did we stop them? He asks, delirious. Hoffmann looks toward the ridge. The Shermans crest it like an unstoppable wave, their silhouettes framed against the sky. Tank after tank, a column so long he can't see the end. No, Hoffmann whispers. We didn't, he wants to lie. He wants to tell his crew the ridge will hold, that reinforcements are coming, that the line won't break. But the truth is there, in steel and motion. A crackle from his field radio breaks his thoughts. German high command to all units. Withdraw to secondary defensive positions. Repeat withdraw. Mueller laughs, a short bitter sound. Withdraw with what? We don't have tanks left. The voice on the radio continues. Enemy forces have established armored superiority. Jaeger spits in the dirt. Armored superiority? That's one way to say they outnumber us 50-1. No one laughs. A cut to another front. 30 kilometers away at a refueling depot, Lieutenant Schaefer of a different Panzer platoon stares at a rail car that was supposed to bring 2 new Panthers. Instead, it holds crates marked for artillery and aircraft fuel. We were promised replacements, he says to the supply officer. The man shrugs helplessly. Replacements are delayed. Schaefer glances at the schedule pinned to the depot wall. For him, delayed means never. For the Americans, replacement means 18 minutes. Back to the gully. Dieter regains consciousness, face contorted in pain. We can fall back. Regroup. Hoffmann shakes his head slowly. Regroup into what? Silence. Only artillery thumps in the distance. Jaeger finally answers. Into a line that will fall tomorrow. The words hang heavy between them. They move south through chest-high grass, keeping low. Hoffmann leads, pistol drawn. German infantry, remnants of a grenadier platoon, run parallel to them, shirts torn, equipment scattered. A corporal stops briefly. Retreating to Pont Eber. Orders are to delay them however possible. Delay with what? Hoffmann asks. The grenadier gives a hollow smile. With our bodies, I suppose. He runs on. The Shermans reach the abandoned Panther. Its ammunition ignites, the explosion lighting the ridge like a brief sunrise. Klein flinches at the shockwave. He looks at the rising column of smoke and murmurs. That's one German tank they won't be repairing. His loader asks, Sir, should we chase the survivors? Klein shakes his head. No, the war isn't won by chasing every tank. He looks at the highway ahead. It's won by taking ground every day. Behind him, more Sherman tanks digest the road, orderly, unstoppable. They are not hunting kills. They are executing a schedule. Hoffmann's crew reaches a line of hedgerows by dusk. Their boots are muddy, uniforms soaked with sweat, faces streaked black. Dieter limps but stays upright. The Panther is gone. The ridge is gone. And for the first time, Hoffmann understands the war is slipping away, not because German tanks are inferior, but because American tanks arrive faster than Germany can destroy them. He looks over the field where hundreds of Shermans now move. Looks like a factory floor. A factory floor that stretches across France. Numbers are no longer abstract. They are steel, they are motion, and they are coming for everything. Night settles over Normandy, but the ground does not sleep. June 18, 1944, 2300 hours. South of Carentan. The moon floats behind clouds like a ghostly coin, washing the farmland in silver. Artillery flashes still light the horizon every few seconds, like distant lightning in a permanent storm. The warm air tastes of ash. Burnt rubber and diesel cling to everything. Hoffmann's exhausted crew trudges along a sunken lane flanked by hedgerows. Their boots sink into mud churned by retreating German infantry. Every few meters, abandoned equipment lies scattered. Ammo crates left half open. Machine guns jammed in the dirt. A field dressing station where the medical tent has collapsed over the wounded. A truck lumbers past them, overloaded with grenadiers clinging to its sides. The driver shouts through the smoking engine noise. St. Lo is collapsing. Make for Pont Hébert. Jaeger waves a lazy, bitter salute. We know. We were on the ridge. The truck disappears around the bend, leaving silence except for the distant rumble of armor, the same steady thunder that haunted them on the ridge. It isn't imagination. The Shermans are still coming. They spot a house ahead, a stone farmhouse partially destroyed by naval bombardment. Its roof has folded inward, timbers charred. Hoffmann motions to his crew. Shelter. 5 minutes, water. Then we move. Inside, flickering lantern light reveals a group of ragged soldiers, grenadiers from the 352nd Infantry Division. Their faces are hollow and gray. One man crouches by a radio set on an overturned door. A medic wraps a bandage around his hand, already stained through with red. An officer with soot-streaked cheeks looks up at Hoffmann. You tankers hold them? Hoffmann shakes his head. We delayed them. The officer attempts a smile. That's enough, but they both know it isn't. In a corner, a teenage runner writes on a notepad, dispatches to Battalion HQ. He pauses, pencil trembling. Panzer losses? He asks quietly. Hoffmann answers, all. The pencil stops. The runner folds the paper without looking up. He folds it with a sadness beyond his years. Outside, Jaeger splashes water onto his face from a cracked porcelain jug. His hands shake uncontrollably now that the adrenaline has drained away. Miller sits on the farmhouse stoop staring at his boots. Do you think what we did today mattered? No one answers, because the answer is increasingly hard to believe. They leave the farmhouse. The lane opens into a crossroads lit by the red glow of burning barns. A traffic jam of retreating vehicles blocks the road. Half-tracks, motorcycles, an Opel Blitz radio truck, and a fuel bowser whose crew frantically siphons gasoline into jerry cans, too scared to waste a drop. A Feldwebel waves at Hoffmann urgently. Do you have armor? We need armor on the left flank. We had armor, Jaeger mutters. The Feldwebel doesn't hear or pretends not to. He shoves a map at Hoffmann. American armor is probing south. You must delay them. Hoffmann doesn't bother restraining the bitterness in his voice. With what? Harsh language? The Feldwebel thrusts a Panzerfaust into his arms. With this. A single disposable anti-tank tube. For a moment, Hoffmann weighs the weapon. It feels insultingly light. Germany once measured power in armored divisions. Now it measures power in cardboard and wood. Single-shot tubes. From the hedgerows beyond the crossroads comes that now familiar vibration, deep, steady, mechanical. The Sherman's Jaeger hears it too. His jaw clenches. They never stop. No, Hoffmann says. They don't. He turns to the grenadiers at the crossroads. We need to ambush them. We use the hedgerows. Wait until they're close. Aim for the flank. This is not strategy. This is survival. They crawl into place. The first Sherman appears, moving slowly, turret rotating cautiously in the darkness, commander peering through goggles. Its engine growls like an animal sniffing prey. Jaeger and Hoffmann hold the Panzerfaust between them, buried in brush. The American tank pauses. Its commander taps the side of the turret. He senses something. Hoffmann whispers, not yet. The Sherman inches forward, closer, closer. Jaeger's voice cracks. Now! Hoffmann fires. Whump! The blast rocks the hedgerow, dust exploding into the night. Flame erupts from the Sherman's flank armor. The tank jerks sideways, turret locked in mid-turn. American voices shout. Return fire rakes the bushes. Machine gun tracers stitching the hedgerow like a sewing machine made of light. Dirt and leaves explode around them. Hoffmann pins himself against the earth, heart hammering so violently it hurts. Fall back, he orders hoarsely. They scramble from cover, bullets cutting through branches like scissors. They run again. Every sprint burns their lungs raw. Every pause feels like drowning. Behind them, the wounded Sherman smolders while another rolls into view almost immediately. Crew working fast. Turret snapping. The message is clear. Replace, advance, replace, advance, A. Panther could hold a position, but Shermans could replace a position. They reach a bridge, Panther, only to find German engineers wiring charges to the supports. The captain in charge raises a hand. No one crosses. Bridge blows in 20 minutes. Hoffmann stares at him. Our lines are still on the far side. The captain shrugs, eyes dead. Not for much longer. Behind them, the thunder of armor rises again. Time is up. Hoffmann turns to his crew. We cross now. They sprint across as the engineers yell and curse, but do not stop them. Other retreating soldiers follow, stampeding over the planks. The moment Hoffmann's boots hit the far bank, boom! The bridge detonates. A column of smoke and splintered timber erupts into the sky. The explosion shakes the earth. The bridge collapses into the river, swallowed by dark water. The Shermans reach the riverside moments later, engines idling, unable to cross. For now, Miller drops to his knees, chest heaving. We finally stopped them, Hoffmann shakes his head. No, we only slowed them. He watches as American engineers already inspect the opposite shore, determining where to build a pontoon. Bridge. The Americans don't stop moving. They don't reenact the battle on the ridge. They don't need to. Factories across an ocean are still feeding them. Shermans will arrive tomorrow, and the next. Day. And the next numbers are no longer a theory. They are a verdict. June 20th, 1944, near St. Lo. 2 days since the ridge. Morning mist clings to the fields like a gray shroud. Rain drips from the hedgerows, soft, clean, and different to the men crawling under them. The world should smell of soil and leaves, but all Hoffmann can smell is burnt fuel and singed rubber. His crew now moves on foot with the remnants of their division, if it can still be called that. Platoons are mixed together without command. A sergeant from a naval Werfer battery leads a group of infantry. An artillery spotter clutches binoculars with trembling hands. Nobody asks who belongs where anymore. They are a retreating army, and the Shermans are the wolves behind them. The group reaches a slope overlooking a road that cuts toward St. Lo. What remains of the German forces, infantry, staff cars, pot guns dragged by horses, flows along it in a wounded stream. Hoffmann scans the tree line beyond the road. Jaeger whispers, "Do you hear that?" Hoffmann does, a rhythmic thunder, like the ridge, like yesterday, like every day. Shermans. Down by the road, a major screams orders at a traffic jam of wagons and trucks. We cannot allow a breakthrough here. All heavy weapons form a line facing west. A corporal salutes weakly. What heavy weapons, sir? The major opens his mouth, then closes it again, staring at the handful of weapons on the roadside. 3 machine guns, a broken 75mm pack gun, and a field telephone that keeps dropping connection. Across the fields, engines rumble. The first Sherman breaks through the mist, then another, then another. Jaeger exhales in disbelief. How many do they have? Hoffmann answers without emotion, voice hollow. All of them. The major grabs Hoffmann by the arm. Tank officer. Good, organize a defense. We'll hold them here. Hoffmann gestures to his empty hands, mud-streaked, blistered, without a tank, without a crew compartment, without anything. I have no Panther. The major blinks. Processing that reality, Hoffmann adds quietly, I have no men to command except 3 exhausted crewmen. The major looks past him to Jaeger and Miller, who appear older than their years, carrying nothing but rifles and bandages tied with twine. For a moment, pride wars with reality in the major's face. Reality wins. Fall back to St. Lo, he mutters. Save yourselves. They withdraw toward the forest edge. Behind them, German machine guns open fire in desperate bursts. Return fire from the Shermans chews through earth and trees. One Sherman's main gun booms, blasting a cartload of ammunition into a firestorm. The German line folds in less than a minute. The Shermans don't pause. They don't need to. Because when one slows, another takes its place, and another after that. Klein, dust-covered, jaw clenched, stands in his hatch scanning the broken road. "There," he says into his radio. "Push through. Keep going. No triumph, no excitement, just execution." To him, it's not shocking to be advancing, it's the schedule. Hoffmann's crew makes for cover in a copse of trees. The distant rumble never stops. Jaeger sinks to the base of a tree, hands in his hair. "They build tanks like bakeries bake bread," he mutters. "And we fight like craftsmen, one masterpiece at a time." Müller sits beside him. "Masterpieces don't win wars." Hoffmann kneels, inspecting his map, though the map no longer matters. The front line has been redrawn by machines. "These Shermans aren't better than us," he says softly. "Just endless." Jaeger laughs bitterly. "That's worse. Hours pass." The sound of battle fades behind them. Eventually, they reach a ravine where a narrow stream gurgles over black pebbles. Dieter, wounded but alive, rests on a mossy log, watching water trickle past. "I always thought we'd win because we had the better tanks," he says. Hoffmann sits with him, watching leaves drift downstream. "Everyone who loses a war," he replies, "believes quality defeats quantity, until the day quantity shows up." Dieter nods slowly. And today was that day. Far ahead, beyond Normandy, beyond France, another Liberty ship is already en route across the Atlantic. Its hold is filled with Shermans and spare parts, crates marked AP gun tubes, final drive assembly, complete turrets. Workers in Detroit do not know the names of Hoffmann's crew. They never will. They only know numbers outside tank every 18 minutes. The war was not decided on the ridge, it was decided on the assembly line. Night falls. The forest is quiet except for their breathing and the soft ripple of the stream. Dieter finally sleeps. Müller leans back against a tree, eyes closed. Jaeger watches the sky, waiting for stars that do not appear. Hoffmann remains awake, silent. He hears Shermans in the distance, still moving, always moving, and he knows the truth. Germany had run out of war. The Americans hadn't even begun to slow down.